It says, if you need to know God's plan. And it's not just about knowing God's plan, but it's also knowing God's purpose. That you have a purpose that he desires for you to fulfill. And in order to know that purpose, you need to be able to tap into the spirit realm where all of these truths reside. Now here's the problem for the believer. We don't know how to tap in. The spirit is not a nice song. The spirit realm is not a shouting beat. The spirit realm is an entire plane of existence. That's why we call it a realm. And watch this. Well, in fact, let's turn. Let's turn to Revelation chapter 1. Nobody wants to go to Revelation. We're going today. Revelation chapter 1. And let's look into this spirit realm. And this is, if you're keeping tabs, this is the 31st installment, good God, of our Kingdom series, Kingdom of God. And we're learning how to not just continue doing church as usual, but to become the ambassadors that we're intended to be. How to tap into all of the tools and the resources and the anointings and the unctions and the gifts that he's given us to be who he called us to be. He didn't call us to be church folk. He called us to be kingdom ambassadors. Light shining in darkness. Revelation 1, reading from the New American Standard at verse 9. I'm going to read down to the end of the chapter, so I'm going to read a little speedily. I, John, your brother and fellow partaker in the tribulation and kingdom and perseverance which are in Jesus. I was on the island called Patmos, and I was there because of the word of God and the testimony of Jesus. They told me to stop preaching, and I didn't stop. I was in the spirit on the Lord's day. And I heard behind me a loud voice like the sound of a trumpet. And that voice was saying, write in a book what you see and send it to the 7 churches, to Ephesus and to Smyrna and to Pergamum and to Thyatira and to Sardis and to Philadelphia and to Laodicea. And I turned to see the voice that was speaking with me. And having turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. And in the middle of the lampstands, one like a son of man, clothed in a robe reaching to the feet, girded across his breast with the golden girdle. And his head and his hair were white like wool, like snow. And his eyes were like a flame of fire. His feet were like burnished bronze when it has been caused to glow in a furnace. And his voice was like the sound of many waters. And in his right hand he held 7 stars. And out of his mouth came a sharp, 2-edged sword. And his face was like the sun shining in its strength. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as a dead man. And he laid his right hand upon me, saying, do not be afraid. I am the first and the last, and the living one. And I was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. And I have the keys of death and of Hades. Write therefore the things which you have seen, and the things which are, and the things which shall take place after these things. As for the mystery of the 7 stars which you saw in my right hand, and the 7 golden lampstands, the 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches themselves. Now, why did I read that entire thing? Because I'm not going to give a dissertation on the interpretation of the vision. That's for another time. But what I want to point out here is that John, he starts off by saying, I was in the spirit. And it was in the spirit that everything else that we read was perceived. Not only in this chapter, but pretty much throughout the entire book of Revelation, all of this stuff he got in the Spirit. Now, what would have happened had John not been in the Spirit? We wouldn't have a revelation. Why? Because revelations come in the Spirit. So he says he was in the Spirit and he saw this. Now notice this is like amazing to me. When we think about our ability to perceive things, well, first of all, let me back up. We know that we are a tripart being, like God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We are tripart: spirit, soul, and body. Soul being the mind, the will, the emotions, the imagination. Remember that? All right. And the body. Now, usually we interact with the world through the body. And we call those means of interaction senses. The way in which we perceive and interact with the world through sight, smell, touch, hearing, and the other one. Whatever it is. Taste. That's the one. That's the one. So we have these five senses through which we interact with and perceive the physical world around us. This is a physical realm, and through our physical senses, we're able to perceive the realm, right? Now, John was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and he saw. He just went through a big long thing telling us what he saw, detailing it out to us, how it looked and everything. He heard because the Lord spoke to him and he recorded it, so he had to hear it. But he wasn't in the flesh. He wasn't in the physical realm. He was in the Spirit. Yet in the spirit realm, he heard, he saw, he felt, because he knew that the Lord touched him on the shoulder. Not his physical body. His physical body was on Patmos. But his spirit was in the Spirit, and he was in the Spirit with his spirit. I'll fix that later. And he was able to perceive, not only perceive, but interact with what was going on, because he was able to actually feel the touch. I'm going to show you later on. In fact, if you read later on in Revelation, an angel hands him a scroll and tells him to eat it. Now, he's not on Patmos. He's in the Spirit. But he takes the scroll and eats it, and he tastes it. In the spirit realm, he tasted it and said it was sweet like honey. Yet when he swallowed it, it was bitter to his stomach. Not this one, the one in the Spirit. Because in the Spirit, we have senses with which to perceive and interact with the world there. The problem is we're so busy living here that there is an entire realm that is going on that we're not actually engaged with. And because of that, we are missing the revelation that God would have to take us higher. Both individually as well as a corporate body. Why the church is staying at Calvary? Because they don't have a revelation beyond Calvary, because that's all they ever got. Because we don't know how to get in the Spirit. So I'm going to take you to the cross every 7 days. They hung him high. I know, baby. Come on, give me something else. But that's all they have, because we don't know how to tap into the Spirit and get revelation beyond, watch this now, beyond what's written. That sounds real bad to us Bible worshipers. Right? But it's true. Because guess what? When John got this, there was no Bible. And we wouldn't even have today what we call the Bible had he not got in the Spirit. Now, for a God who is not just called the Word, but who is the Word, I dare to think he's still speaking. And we need to get in the Spirit to hear what the Spirit is saying to the church. Why is it that we only receive from God oftentimes when we're asleep? I had a dream past. Well, how come you didn't have a vision while you were awake? Because you wouldn't get in the Spirit. So God has to shut your body down in order to speak to you, because you're too busy living life during your waking hours. At some point, we need to learn how to shut off life, get in the Spirit, and get a revelation from God. Turn to Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians chapter 2. When you get there, say there. Ephesians 2. Now that we know that there is a spirit realm, now that we know that, like John, we can enter into the spirit realm, I want to actually show us the mechanics. The mechanic. How does it work? Not how to go, I'll deal with that later. But how does it work getting in the spirit? What does that look like? So Ephesians chapter 2, verse 4. But God, being rich in mercy, because of his great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our transgressions, he made us alive together with Christ. I'm glad that God is God and not church folk. Because see, church folk, even when you're dead in transgressions, they're going to wake you up and kill you again. But hey, that'll make you shout. But God, being rich in mercy, said, even we were dead in our transgressions, made us alive together with Christ. By grace, you have been saved, just in case you forgot. He raised us, when he made us alive, he raised us up. Is that future tense, will raise? Is that present tense, he is raising? Or is that past tense? All right. He raised us up with him and seated us, past tense, with him in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus. Now, why would he do such a thing? In order that in the ages to come, he might show the surpassing riches of his grace in kindness toward us in Christ Jesus. One of the reasons we don't realize just how rich Jesus is because we don't know what we got. We don't know what we got because we don't know how to get in the spirit and see it. So that means that our whole existence is what we call religious. It's based on everything that we know about Christianity in this realm. Do you all realize this experience of faith is only intended to be a doorway into that one? That's the appetizers. Now, how many of us are surviving as believers on appetizers and never even knew that there was a main course because all we ever got were mozzarella sticks? Appetizers are not intended to actually supply to you the nutrients that you need to survive. They are intended to whet your appetite and prepare you for the great things that are to come. And the text says that he seated us with Christ so that we might be prepared for the great things that are to come. But we're not tapping in because we're satisfied with this. I want the church universal to just become dissatisfied with this. Amen. I'm tired of the choir. I'm tired of the ushers. I'm tired of the preacher. I'm tired of all of it. Why? Because I know there's more. It's not that I want this to stop. I want this to continue going. But it's only a doorway into a greater experience with Christ. And if you're not leading me anywhere, why am I here? There has to be more than just church. But so far, that's all the church is offering. But we're satisfied, unfortunately. So, he raised us up together. Now watch this. He seated us with Christ. Now, he didn't seat us with Christ in the instant we were saved just so that we can come back down here and live the rest of our lives here. That means that when you were seated together with Christ in the heavenly places, that's where you stayed. If you are born again right now at 12:25 Central Daylight Time in the year of our Lord, whatever this is, 2017, you are right now seated with Christ in heavenly places. No, I'm not, Pastor. I'm seated with you at 601 McKinley. Your flesh is. But you are spirit, soul, and body. You are literally existent right now in two places concurrently. The natural, or the physical, and the spirit. Now, isn't it a shame to be somewhere and not even know you're there? Isn't it a shame to be in the bank with all the money and it belonging to you, and yet you still lose the house because you didn't realize you were there? All right now. All right now. All right now. How much how many resources do we have access to that we're not tapping into because the only existence that we are aware of is the one that can provide our needs. So he says that we're presently seated with Christ in heavenly places right now. So that means getting in the Spirit is not a matter of going there. You already are. And that's the thing we have to understand. This is not some big journey where you have to pack a lunch. You are already there, and in order to get in the Spirit, it only takes as long as it takes for you to shift your mind. Okay, here's how it works. You are spirit, soul, and body. You have two divergent existences, spirit and body. Your spirit exists in the spirit realm, and your body exists in the natural realm. Well, Pastor, where does the soul come in? Your soul is the bridge that connects them. Okay? In order for something to be a bridge, it has to connect to both places. You can't go on the bridge from St. Louis to Illinois unless the doggone bridge has an end in St. Louis and Illinois. So now watch this. How do you perceive the natural realm? Well, with my senses, with this. Well, that's almost true. But see, you can have your senses in the body and still not perceive. So what happens is your physical body sends electrical impulses. It sends the data that it gathers to your brain. Your brain processes it and releases it to your mind, to your soul. And it's your soul or your mind that actually makes sense of the data that was sent to it. That's how somebody can be colorblind. The color still exists, but something is breaking up between the time it comes to your eye and the time it gets to your brain in the processing see. All right. So now, if your mind is the bridge between the two, and it is the mind through which we are able to process the data sent to it by our bodies in order to understand the world that we exist in right now. Why don't we think it happens exactly the same way with the spirit realm? We want a spiritual experience that looks like, I don't know, Hollywood, or sounds like the old church mothers. You try to make it sound all hyper spiritual. But here is what existing in the spirit looks like. The same way that your body is able to send the data, like I can't know that this building looks the way it does except my eyes saw it, and then it can't just be that the eyes saw it. It sent the signal to my brain processed it. Okay? In the same way, your spirit, like your body, is existing in a realm. It is processing data, and it is sending data to your soul. Here's the problem. We're not processing any information that's being sent to our spirit. It's being cast aside. Have you ever been somewhere but not been there? I'm at school, but I was at home. I couldn't tell you what they taught. Some of y'all are doing that right now. I'm just saying. I couldn't tell you what was said because even though my body was there, my soul was somewhere else. So your body was processing information. How do I know your body's processing information? Because when you're driving home on autopilot, you don't know how you got there. But your body was still sending information because you still turned when you needed to turn. You still stopped when you needed to stop. But your soul was somewhere else. Thank God for grace. Right? Now, that's exactly how it is in the spirit. We are listening. This is sad. We are living in the spirit on autopilot. A whole realm at our disposal, and we are not processing the information that our spirit is sending to us. Getting in the spirit is not going there. You are there, but you are not awake.
Amen.
You are not awake. It's like the body. It's like when the soul goes to sleep, your heart is still beating. Your body may still shiver because it gets cold, but your soul is unaware of the data that your body oftentimes is sending because it's asleep. And our soul, to the spirit realm, our soul is asleep because we were never taught how to, been saved all this time, and we were never taught how to wake it up to the spirit. But you're going to learn today. Now, getting in the spirit means turning your mind, your imagination, turning it toward the spirit realm. So in our conscious existence, we will say conscious from the physical perspective, we're able to perceive what's going on because our soul is turned toward the natural. And that's how pretty much we've been ever since we were born. Our soul has been turned toward the natural, so we're paying attention to what's taking place in the natural realm. So getting in the spirit doesn't mean going there. It means turning your soul, your mind, your imagination, turning it toward your existence in the spirit realm. Now, Jesus made a statement. He said, "He that hath an ear, let him hear." Now, the point he was really making was, listen. What he was really saying was, pay attention. The spirit is speaking some things, but your soul is turned toward the natural things. So he says, pay attention because the spirit is trying to show you something. Now turn to Jeremiah 29. Jeremiah 29. And when you get to Jeremiah 29, say there. 29th chapter, Jeremiah. We talked about the little mechanics. I have to move quickly because the deacon's going to fire me. You know, in the Baptist church, deacons got all the power. We ain't Baptists. Hey, I shot on that now. Jeremiah 29, verse 13. Jeremiah 29, 13. You will seek me. This is God speaking through the prophet. And you will seek me and find me, but it's not just when you seek me any kind of way. You will find me when you search for me with all your heart. Understand, he is not talking about all your emotions. Your heart in this context means mind. It doesn't even mean spirit. It means mind. So what he's saying is, you will find me when you turn your attention and focus intently on finding me. When you seek me with all your thinking, with all your imaginations. But how do we do that? By shutting off Facebook? By turning off the TV? By unplugging the phone? But we don't want to do that because we're too important. See, we are deluded into having a greater sense of our importance, such that we cannot survive without being connected to the world around us. I promise you, you'll make it. There were generations that came before us didn't even have what technology we have. Can you imagine what generation little Avery's what technology that she's going to have at her disposal? We got to pray her right now for the level of distraction that's going to be available to her. Train up the child now in the way she should go. Right? But here's the thing. It's all about choice. We want to get some kind of supernatural spiritual unction. No, God said, choose me. Choose to want to be around me. Choose to want to be in my presence. Choose to want to get into the spirit. You want to go to church and have some ecstatic experience. No, choose.
Right. Yes.
I'm waiting on the unction. No, you haven't sought me with your whole heart yet. That's why people are talking about experiences that you have no idea what they're talking about. And you're so hungry for it that you go to the altar every Sunday getting hands laid on you. That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. You cannot be laid on hands and get in the spirit. They might push you to the floor. And you're down there thinking, if I could get up from here. But the Lord is holding you down. Hold on, baby. Right? But we get in the spirit by making a conscious effort. And until you want it badly enough to shut down all this other temporal mess, you will either never experience it, or you'll have these fleeting moments of inspiration that you just can't seem to hold on to. So he says you'll find me when you search for me with your whole heart. Now, if you have ever gotten on an airplane before, you realize there cannot be an arrival without a departure. You can't get in the spirit till you get out the flesh. Now, what do I mean by flesh? Out of the sin life. That ain't what I'm talking about. You want to hear about that? Go to the Pentecostal. They'll talk about that. I'm talking about get out of the natural realm. That means you have to learn how to minimize distractions, because since the natural realm comes naturally to us because we've been trained in it from birth, it becomes much more of a labor to tap into the spirit. Now, there will come a time when you are able, and I'm speaking this thing by faith, there will come a time when you are able to exist in the spirit realm without having completely silenced the natural realm. Amen. Okay? Why is that necessary? Well, when you're ministering to somebody at the altar, you need to be able to know where they're at. They over here, you laying hands over this way. Right? You need to be able to know what's going on. You need to be able to be conscious of both realms simultaneously. But that comes with practice and discipline. And it is not easy. Okay? So that means that especially when we are first starting out trying to tap into this process of getting in the spirit, we have to minimize distractions as much as possible. Turn off the TV, like I said, turn off Facebook, turn off the phone, and tell God he means more to you than whoever texting you. I know you want to talk. They'll be around. And if they die, get in the spirit and resurrect them.
All right now.
Yeah, they'll catch you on the way home. That's all right. So if there's not an emergency that's more important than getting in the spirit. Why? Because in the spirit, you can fix what's wrong here. So our priorities are all jacked up, and he told us to seek first the kingdom. We hear that, we amen it, but then we go right back to doing what we do all the time. So at some point, we have to say, I'm actually hungry for this. This is not just religion for me anymore. I actually want more. And here's a really sad thing, and I really hope that you appreciate this here. There are a lot of Christians who know that there is more. It's like they're aware of their existence in the spirit realm, but they don't know that that's what it is. They don't know how to articulate it. They don't even know that that's what they're feeling. But they're aware of it in a way. And they know there's more. But they're not being taught or trained in it, so they feel unfulfilled. At least here, you're being given the tools you need to do. How much worse is it for you if you choose not to do it? You have to make a decision to say, I am going to pursue this with all my mind. All right? Now, so we shut off things. We quiet ourselves. We quiet our environment. We quiet our space. And here's what we need to do. One of the best ways, the easiest ways, especially as we're starting out, is to begin to worship. Why do we worship? Because if you know anything about worship, then you realize that worship is all about him. Now, if you have a difficult time making things about him because you're so overwhelmed with what's about you, then start with praise. Because praise is not just about you, but it starts with you because you're praising him for what he's done for you. So start off giving God praise. God, thank you for what you've done. We honor you. We bless your name. You forgive me of my sins, and I honor you, and I celebrate you, God. But then just get into who he is. Get off of you and get into who he is. As you focus more on who he is, you're doing what? Focusing. Focusing where? Your mind. What is your mind? Your soul. You're turning your soul toward him. Okay? So through the worship experience, you turn your soul toward him. All right? Now, when you turn your soul toward him, here is the press of the experience. You have to develop a Jacob spirit, because Jacob wrestled with God and would not let go until God blessed him. If you expect to get in the spirit because you gave 90 seconds of worship, but by the time the song went off, you were over it, not going to work. It's going to take time and dedication and commitment, especially as you're starting out. Why? Because you are building muscles that have completely atrophied. They're worthless at this point. Because you never got past the shout. All right? So we're building muscles in how to actually turn ourselves to the Spirit, and it takes time. So block off an hour. Oh, past an hour. See, you don't want it bad enough. You don't want it. But then when you need some help and healing and deliverance, you want to call folk who did commit themselves to the process to come to your rescue when you had access to the same resources they did, but you were too busy pacifying the flesh. Now our job is to help you when you're weak, because we bear the infirmity of the weak. But our job is not to actually enable you to stay weak. Get before him yourself. Pastor, you got a word for me? No, honey. Get before him yourself. I bet he has a word for you. I told y'all a few weeks ago, I get so tired of him contacting me for a word. It does not say Miss Cleo on my profile. But you want me to do all the work to get you a word, and then gave man offering. I'm just saying. Now, take the time. Do the work, y'all. We had this saying in this generation, do the work. Commit yourself to the process and stay there. You get on that floor, sit in that chair, wherever you need to be. Just make sure it's comfortable, because we don't want the aches and pains to become a distraction. Get comfortable and tell God, all right, we're going to do this. And do not get up until you get in the spirit. Well, how do I know I'm in the spirit? You'll know. You'll know. See, I would like to tell you how you'll know, but see, everybody's different. Yes. And I don't want you duplicating my experience. I want you to have your own. Because see, you might tap into the spirit realm and be right there in the room where you are, but you're in the spirit. You might tap into the spirit realm and be in the throne room kissing his feet. You might tap into the spirit realm and be at the hospital laying hands. I don't know where he'll take you. The point is, go. Right. So we give people the specifics about our experience, and we're trying to duplicate things, and then it doesn't work because that's not how it's intended to work. And so we start to lie about what we experienced because we want so badly to say we are where they were. And so now we're preaching sermons they preached when we haven't even experienced it for ourselves. And the church is full of that today. Preaching somebody else's word because you couldn't get in the spirit for yourself. The sad thing is the church don't know the difference. So we worship. We silence ourselves. We worship. You want to put on some music? Put on the music. Open your mouth and sing to him. Come before his presence. We're singing. Psalm 100 verse 2. Enter his gates with thanksgiving, into his court with praise. All right. So it's a wonderful thing to sing our way into his presence. But when you get there, shut up. I'm not trying to be funny, y'all. I'm just telling you how it works. When you get there, be quiet. Why? Because, see, I'm speaking with this and this flesh. But now I'm in the spirit. And now what speaks the praise is the mouth of the spirit. Okay. Now, how does that work? All right. Everybody, right hand, lift it up. Put it down. All right. Are you aware that it was your soul that made your hand raise? What is your soul? Your mind. You lifted up your hand because you heard me say it, and then your soul made a decision to do it. It sent the instruction to your hand. It even knew which hand, the right one, and it lifted it up, and it put it back down, right? Your body was being moved by your soul. If your soul is the bridge and the connecting point between both realms, then what makes you think your spirit cannot likewise be moved by your soul? That means that when you are in the spirit realm, you are able to actually interact with the spirit realm just like John did. You were able, he hands you the scroll, you were able to reach out with your spirit body, not your natural body, and take the scroll and eat it and taste it and swallow it. And oh, that wasn't like it tasted, right? It was bitter down here. He was able to know and perceive because his soul was active in the spirit realm. What is your soul? It is your mind. It is your thinking. It is your imagination. That means to get into the spirit. See, this is what we have to diverge from Eastern mysticism. Eastern mystics tell you to meditate and clear your mind. That ain't God. We don't make our minds open to anybody but Jesus. He didn't tell us clear your mind. He said think on these things. So what that means is as you are worshiping God and as you are pressing into the spirit, choose to engage your imagination. Turn this thing on. Remember I told you a while ago in that sermon about the imagination that Jesus said that if you had sex with her in here, you sinned. You did it. Why? Because what happens up here is not just make-believe no matter what you told your child. This is real. All right? So that means that as we engage our imagination, imagine yourself at his feet. Imagine yourself crying and wiping his feet with your tears. Imagine yourself embracing him. Imagine yourself at the throne. Imagine what the elders look like. Imagine the 4 living creatures. Don't get scary with it, but just imagine the 4 living creatures. Put yourself in these areas. Imagine the angels. Imagine the seraphim, and they're flying around with their 6 wings. 2 to cover the feet, 2 to cover the eyes, and 2 to fly. Engage your imagination. Now, Pastor, that's just my imagination. I'm just making that up. No, be careful. Number 1, he told us to think on the good things. And number 2, what happens is as we are actually engaging our imaginations, then he'll begin to engage the imagination and it will begin to take its own course. Because now he's actually ushering you into the place where you are striving to be. Did he not say that your job was to pursue him with all your mind? All your imaginings. This is where faith comes in. Because we have to learn how to stop disbelieving it just because it exists up here. This is the way that we process what we're seeing, hearing, and tasting there, just like here. So if you discount it just because you processed it here, right? See, again, we want this ethereal experience. That's not going to happen. May happen once in your lifetime. May. Usually you're engaging here. And he's showing you vision. Where are you seeing the vision? Here. I saw it in the spirit. You may have saw it in the spirit, but you processed it here. All right? Don't be afraid of this mind, because this is the place where we are actually engaging this realm. Just write this down. You don't have to turn there. Ephesians chapter 1. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 18. Ephesians 1, verse 18. Now, let's turn quickly to Acts 22. Acts 22. Ephesians 1, verse 18 is where he talks about He's praying for them that the eyes of their understanding or the eyes of their heart or the eyes of their imagination would be enlightened. He wants us to open these eyes to see. Now turn to Acts 22. I want to quickly walk you through a couple of additional in the Spirit experiences. We saw one in Revelation chapter 1. He was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and he was able to not only see, but actually engage and interact that world. Now watch what happens here in Acts 22, verse 17. And it came about, this is Peter, it came about when I returned to Jerusalem and was praying, this is Paul. Came about when I returned to Jerusalem and was praying in the temple that I fell into a trance. Where was he? In Jerusalem, in the temple. All right? He fell into a trance. What went into a trance? His body? No. His mind. All right? I saw him, the Lord, saying to me, I saw him. With his physical eyes? No, they were in the temple. But he saw the Lord with the eyes of his spirit and processed it with his soul. Now, he didn't doubt it. Oh, that's just my mind. No, he processed it and he wrote it for us. He believed what he saw. I saw him saying to me, he heard him as well. Make haste and go. And get out of Jerusalem quickly, because they will not accept your testimony about me. When you hear in your mind the Lord say, hurry up, you better hurry up. We don't have time to doubt. And I said, with his mouth, no, his mouth was in the temple. He's engaging. He's actually having a conversation with Jesus in the Spirit. And I said, Lord, they themselves understand that in one synagogue after another, I used to imprison and beat those who believed in thee. And when the blood of thy witness Stephen was being shed, I also was standing by approving and watching out for the cloaks of those who were slaying him. I participated in all of this madness. And he said to me, go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles. The man had a conversation with the Lord in the Spirit. He not only, so what does that mean? You don't have to just be there will be times when you are, but you don't have to just be a passive observer of what's going on. You can actually engage and interact. Why? Because your spirit is literally there. Now, did his spirit choose to speak? No. His spirit doesn't have a will. Your will is your soul. So when he responded to Jesus, his soul told his spirit to speak. All right? I'm showing you how this thing works. Now let's look in Acts 10. Let's see one more. One more example of this. Now, I want you to think about the idea of getting in the Spirit being a sliding scale. Okay? Rarely will you be, quote unquote, all the way in the Spirit. Okay? Usually you'll be somewhere on a spectrum. What is that spectrum? Somewhat aware of here, but I'm also aware of here. Okay? When you are totally disconnected from this realm and completely engaged in that realm, that is called a trance. Okay? Doesn't happen often, but it does in fact happen, and it's available for us to be completely disconnected from this realm and to be there, and that is called a trance. Unless you're already asleep, and then it's called a sleep. But that doesn't make it not real. Acts 10. Acts 10. If you're there, say there. All right, let's look at verse 9. Now, this is Peter. And on the next day, as they were on their way and approached the city, Peter went up on the housetop about the 6th hour to pray. Now, pause. Remember this. Paul, when he had his vision, he was where? In Jerusalem, in the temple. Doing what? Praying. Right? That means that he was being intentional. He chose to go in there for the purpose of praying, for the purpose of seeking God. Now here, Peter is being intentional. He's choosing to go up on the housetop to pray, to seek God. Once again, if you want to get in the spirit, don't just go about your life waiting on the Lord to jerk you into a trance. Become intentional and choose to pursue. Seek him with your whole mind and you'll find him. He went up on the housetop about the 6th hour to pray. And even though he became hungry and was desiring to eat, he fell into a trance. Isn't it amazing that even when our bodies are trying to distract us with its own issues, that he still stayed focused and was able to tap in and fall into a trance. All right. And he beheld the sky opened up and a certain object like a great sheet coming down. He's watching this now in the spirit, lowered by 4 corners to the ground. And there were in that sheet all kinds of 4-footed animals and crawling creatures of the earth and birds of the air. And a voice came to him, not in the physical, but in the spirit. Arise, Peter, kill and eat. But Peter said, not with he's in a trance, y'all. He's disconnected from the physical body. All right. But in the trance, in the spirit, he said, but no, by no means, Lord, for I have never eaten anything unholy and unclean. And again, a voice came to him a second time. What God has cleansed, no longer consider unholy. And this happened 3 times, and immediately the object was taken up into the sky. Now, this is so important. While Peter was greatly perplexed, pause, you will not always understand what it is that you are seeing in the spirit realm. What in the heck was that? That actually happens a lot. You know why? Because the spirit realm is not the same as the natural realm, and it does not operate by the same parameters. There is a sheet flowing down out of the sky with animals in it. I must really be hungry. Right? But he didn't dismiss it. I must have eaten pizza last night before I went to bed. He didn't dismiss it. Now, while Peter was greatly perplexed in mind as to what the vision which he had seen might be, behold, the men who had been sent by Cornelius, having asked directions for Simon's house, appeared at the gate. And calling out, they were asking whether Simon, who was also called Peter, was staying there. Now, watch this. While Peter was reflecting on the vision, pause. While Peter was reflecting on the vision, you have to take time when the vision has ended, when you come back out the spirit, to reflect on what you saw in the spirit. Don't just say, "Oh, that was cool. I wonder what's on TV." Value the fact that you just had an encounter in the spirit realm, and that God would not have shown this to you had it not been important. Even if you don't understand it, consider it. Reflect on it. Now let me give you a very, very important key. A very, very, very important key about reflection. Write the vision. We think that write the vision was about getting a vision. Oh, I want to be a business owner. I'm going to write the vision. It works there, but that's not what it actually was talking about. He said, I'm going to wait on my watch and see what the Lord's going to say to me. And when he speaks, when he shows me something, when he gives me a vision, when I tap in to when I get in the spirit, I'm going to write down what I saw. Why? Because if I don't, it will be gone 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, an hour later. You know how it is when you have a dream. That dream can be so just amazing. But if you don't write it down before you even get up out the bed, it's gone before you get out the shower. Okay? Write it down. What am I writing? Everything. Write down what you see. Write down how it felt. Write down what you think the temperature was. Write down what it smelled like. Write down what you heard. Write down everything. But I'm not sure about that. Write it down anyway and put a question mark next to it. Write down everything. Yes. Why? Because now I have what I need to reflect on. Now I have what I need to take to God in prayer so that I can understand what it is he just showed me. All right? So write the vision. Now don't rush out of the vision in order to write it down. He won't put on you more than you're able to bear. So stick around and get the complete thing that he's trying to communicate. When you come out of that vision, reflect on it. Spend some time reflecting. Spend some time recalling it to your mind. Run through the whole vision again in your mind. Now, now this may actually happen. There are times when you come out of the spirit and you just can't really move. Especially if you were in a trance. Sometimes it's difficult to even move. Deacon Cheryl knows a little bit about that. Somebody help me to my seat. I can't move. Right? Keep revolving it around in your mind. Lock it there until you are able to get to a pen and write it down. If you can't get to a pen, pull that cell phone out and press record on the voice recorder and begin to dictate what you saw, what you heard, what it smelled like, what you tasted. Okay? Everything about the vision, record it. Now, it may be important at this point, once you come out of the vision, if you will, out of the spirit. If you were playing music while you were entering in, that's great, but now it's time to turn it off because it can actually be distracting you from the vision, from remembering it. Okay, you hear lyrics, it sends you into what the lyrics are saying. You don't want that, so turn it off. You keep your remote control next to you, or if it's on your phone, keep it next to you and turn it off when you come back out so that you can begin to reflect on the vision itself. Now, when you believe that you understand what the vision is about, write it down, talk to God about it, pray about it, share it with somebody else. Now, here's the thing. Do not lock yourself into one interpretation. Why? Because oftentimes things come by progressive revelation. He might show us some things later on that we hadn't even considered before. So be open to continuing to revolve around that thing. Keep you a vision journal so that you can actually go back over the visions that you had 2-3 months ago. Recall it again. Reflect on it again. See if the Lord might drop something new into your spirit concerning it. This is a very, very practical things that you can do to begin to engage the spirit realm. But I'm telling you, it is not going to come naturally because you have been programmed to not engage that realm. But if you actually take the time to do it, and this is myself included, this realm is available to us because we exist there right now. We exist there right now. And there's so many revelations. The reason that Paul said that he was praying that the eyes of their understanding would be enlightened was so that they might know what is the hope of their calling and what is the riches of their inheritance. He says there's so much available to you that you know not what. And I want you to see it. I want you to know it. But the only way you'll know it is for your eyes to open. It's for you to get into the spirit. So I can preach it. I'm not really preaching, I don't think. I can teach it. I can't make you do it. You have to take the initiative and the responsibility for your spiritual development. I cannot lay hands on you. I cannot blow on you. I cannot spit on you and get you in the spirit.
Praise God.
You have to take the initiative and pursue it, and it will not come easily. It is a labor to shift the way we have related to the world all our lives. That's a labor. But once you start doing it, it will progressively get easier. It will progressively. And you'll be able, and this is what's important about ministry. If somebody needs to be healed from pain right then, the Bible said that woman had that thing for 18 long years. She don't have time for Jesus to go take 6 hours to get in the spirit.
Right.
Let me go get in the spirit. I'll call you back, baby. No, I'm dying. Right? It's our responsibility as bearers of the kingdom to develop the ability to enter in. And it does not come naturally. We have to develop. We have to develop.